Hi, just me again. I brought out the chess set. I play a lot of chess, but I live alone, so I play against myself mostly. And it gives me a great understanding of myself. However, I always know what the other opponent's thinking, so the game is a little bit off. But anyway, it gives me a chance to practice things in life. This chessboard is just one of the tools I'd use to kind of explain things to myself, especially when it comes to calculating how you're dealing with other things. Because if you look at a chess piece, it is telling you a story about things, about life, how to protect yourself, how to anticipate somebody else's moves, how space is controlled and outside of space is not. And space is nothing more than a field. So like this queen, she sits alongside the king on her own color. So the side this way for the queen is what I call the white side. She's on the white square, and it is her own color. So this half of the quarter of the board, actually from here to here, is the white. From here to here, the king and all of his minions are the black, sitting on the black square. Conversely, on this side, it's a mirror image. Things like this is what I'm talking about. This is the line. This whole thing has a field. The white, or the green in my case, the brass and the bronze. The brass side has a field up to this line. Everything on this side of the board belongs to this. Everything on this side belongs to this. This is the field of operation, the conflict. It is that line between positive and negative, but there's no establishment yet as to who is positive and who is negative, because it's arbitrary and it switches back and forth. The man whose move it is the positive. He's moving into another position, changing his frequency or field into a new area, encroaching on the other area. So it's an attack, but it isn't got to the point where now it's going to actually attack. It's setting itself up and it's thinking ahead. So in order to do that with this piece, you first have to clear the path. So you've got to open something else up. And when you do that, you extend your field a little further. This one now moving out here, and it has the option of moving from here to here or from here 2 spaces to here. Now the field of this has moved. It's right here. Now it's over the line, encroaching on this. So that first move would respond with an equal but opposite move. So you put this one here to block this one from going forward. But now in the attack mode, by being here, have covered this space and this space, because this player, if anything hits here, I can take it. There's the conflict. But this player can only attack to the side. This is a stalemate. But it protects this man from this man, and it protects this man from this man. So now your response move here, the next move I would make, would be to put something that's going to protect this one from any attack coming from here or here back at me. Because if this one goes here, we are in a conflict. That's the thing with chess. It's just every move creates a whole new field of operation. This one is amazing because he has the only one that has the ability to jump over other players to get to his spot, and it is always a either one. In this case, we're going to go 2 spaces forward, and then we can take 1 space left or right. I want to place this one here. Okay, so now this is protecting this, so is this protecting this. But this one has expanded its field to be able to go here, 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 or here, setting up a radius. But the thing you have to consider in your battle plan is that this right now is a white knight. He's on a white spot. So is this one. But each move you're going to go to a black spot. So that aspect of the game again. Now you move it here. My next move is going to be to a white spot in any direction. I cannot go to another black spot because of the configuration of the attacks. I can only go 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. Either way, I get back on a white spot. I am attacking these two with this move. So these guys are in defense. This man knows that you're going to go to a white spot. So does this. So now, if I know that, this man is protecting this spot. So is this man. This white spot is protected by these two. So there's all of this consideration you have to do, and it is so lifelike, especially when you consider the fields, because the queen can go any direction, any number of spaces until it meets another person, another man. So she has the most power on the board. I can attack here. I can attack here. I can attack here. I can cover and defend all this way, and diagonally. The only move I can't make is that knight's move. So the queen, along with the knight, is probably one of your early in the game most powerful partnerships, because this one has far-reaching power and this one can shoot around corners. So you have all these options. But for me, and the reason I'm doing all this is to explain about what fields are and how do we handle them? What do we do? Because if you look at society, we build everything on the individual energy that we're dealing with. And that energy is not outside. Everything outside is inert. Okay, unless somebody, a human being, or some being anyway, that has energy to create power out of that energy, to make something out of it. Every time they do that, they are pushing a field outward, and it meets resistance. So that resistance, I can sit and analyze on this chessboard, and I can understand now which piece do I need to do to properly attack that. Because if that queen emerges out here in the middle, she's got such a wide field that she's covering, and with one move, she moves the whole field. So with all of that in mind, I can now calculate where is the best move and who's the best player to make that move. Well, my first thought is, do I want to try and take that player, or do I just want to try and block it from being able to do something? So the protected spaces that she's protecting are one thing, but in between them are places that she can't reach without moving to another spot to start with. So if I take this player and I move it here, she could just take it and put me in check. That would be a horrible move. Boom, now she's got my king in check. Now granted, this isn't going to play out quite like this, because you can't jump your queen out first off without moving your players. So it's a progression, and each progression changes the whole dynamic. So let's take that whole theory about fields, zones of operation, protection, and attack, and kind of put it into an understanding of how our society is set up. Because everything in society right now is in a flux. And if you aren't aware that things in the world are in the process of changing dramatically and rapidly, you're sleeping. It's time to wake up. That term woke doesn't mean we're trying to do something politically. Woke means you're aware of what's going on around you, and you're aware of those energies that are propelling you to do the things you're doing in the same manner you've always done them. And it's time now we find a new manner of doing things and increase our field of operation to run the board. Because right now, we aren't running anything. We've left it all in charge of the two parties. And they're playing a different game than we're playing. They're trying to take out a lot of their own players so that it leaves more space, more money, more energy, more of everything for themselves. So the hierarchy thinks they can run the world without any pawns. And they can't. Because the pawns are what holds everything together. That's your defense. The pawns, us, we need to take it back. And it doesn't need to be a violent thing, because everything that's happening is energetic. And everything that is energetic has a polarity. And every polarity can be reduced, or not reduced, switched. Boy, that one came out hard. You can reverse the polarity, changing everything. So let's say that we change this game from being what it is to being something different. Change the game. Checkers is more two-dimensional. This is not three-dimensional, but it has many, many, many dimensions. Each player operates in a whole new field of dimension. In checkers, you're all flat. You make a king, it can now do things that the other players can't do. It has a superposition. So the object changes get the king before it gets you. That's where we're at right now. Get the king, because he's coming after you. That's a political statement, I know, but it's also a statement that's being echoed into the spiritual world when we start to study the energy. This energy that's in us and around us right now is a energy that is very annoying, very static, it just eats at everybody. It's eating at the very foundation of their fields. But every time two beings come together, you each have a field, you create a larger field. These two can be on the board now, and they cover a huge area all the way around them. There's nothing that can't be touched by these two players that are going to come in to attack it. Now I'm talking equal players. These guys haven't emerged yet, so you can attack these guys. You can either stalemate them, or you can come out and attack them here and here. This guy could attack here and here. These are stalemate. They're just going to lock everybody from moving. They have to move around them. These two are attacking here, but they're both, the attackers are under attack too. And one player here now protects the whole board in this section. this guy could move to here. Now he's occupying and protecting these two, and he's in a deadlock with all of these. Nobody can attack that one. That's another thing you can always look at. There is a way. But the thing is, your power doubles with the number of players you have. If you whittle down your size to a couple of players and your opponent still has a large number of players, you are overwhelmed. And the chances of your winning are just about impossible, because all you can do is run unless you have a defense. And if you have a defense, now you have to have ability to attack your opponent, because they aren't going to just sit by. They're going to be coming at you. So all of this is theory that has plans. And if I study the board and I study the pieces and I study everything and I read all about it and I play a lot of games to understand it, I get this book of knowledge about how the game is played. Then I have another book that it picks up where this one left off, and it says, now here's how we apply this. So I take that book out now and I study all of the tactics of the board and how to maneuver the fields to cover the board and how to maneuver the fields to attack, how to push things back with energy of the field. Where is the field vested the heaviest in these players? And how do I utilize them? How do I understand that some of the things this player is doing are not real? He's doing them to distract me so that I'm concentrating here while he attacks over here. Trump thinks everybody takes the bait and doesn't watch him over here while he's stealing everything. But that guy doesn't play chess. He's playing checkers. But he thinks everybody else is playing chess. And he's got the edge because nobody can attack him. He's a checker player, not a knight or king or a pawn. So he lives in an illusion, and he's pulling a whole lot of other energies along with him. In that field of his, he has created a vortex that people fall into and can't get out. It's a cult. But that's basically what we are up against. And the chessboard for me is a tool to understand things. I have a lot of tools I use to understand things. I have torids, and they sit on shelves and hang off of the ceiling up here right next to me to give me in a place that when I have a question, I can look at that and it tells me about energy and how I can change the energy to work for me and not for everybody else that is trying to occupy my space. This is how I, in my mind, deal with issues. So it come to me that we need to go back to what got us here. And the trouble that most people have is you're either too young to have seen it because it started 40 years ago. And even then, it was under the guise of a new religious awakening. Now that was not, it was a New Age movement, is what they call it. That was no accident. That was a primer to set us up for what we are right now. That movement that came in, that New Age movement, was hijacked by the one party. And they had laid this out long before. They saw the weakness of religion in the Romans and how they capitalized on it in the 4th century. And they're kind of playing it back again. But these guys, this Heritage Foundation movement that started back in the 80s, is very vulnerable. It has to start at the grassroots and move its way through like a virus. And when it got to being that point where we needed a real wake-up call, we got COVID, the ultimate virus. And now it's coming out that this whole thing, in the beginning, people were saying it was a setup and it was on purpose and had a purpose. And they were right. It did, and it was, and it is. It's still the purpose. We're still having to deal with it because it was made in a lab and it got out. And then they tried to cover it up, but a bunch of people saw a benefit to this. They locked down a whole country. Within a week of being locked down for COVID, did anybody notice that the air quality of the world went pristine almost? LA, half of the people didn't know there was an ocean behind that beach that they go down to because you couldn't never see it. It was buried in a pink fog. And I was in the LA area back when I was in the Navy, and I remember on a November morning going out onto the exercise field before we were going to go to breakfast. We had to have a workout, and looking around, and everything was pink. It was early, the sun was just coming up, but everything was pink. It was the atmosphere. You're not supposed to be able to see the air. So that was a real wake-up call. But it's also very synchronistic. All this stuff that's happened in my life has later been explained by something else that happens. That synchronistic thing. But to get back to the other part of it is, if we as a people, whenever we join, we get married, I have a field and she has a field. When we get married and we're a couple, we live together, our energies become one. And they start to explain a lot of stuff. It determines how we're going to operate, because now that energy being one means we don't do anything unless we're in agreement. And if you take it to the next step, one of us is always positive and the other is always negative. Now, that doesn't mean that this one is always positive and this one is always negative. It's that there is always a positive and always a negative. And when they come into agreement, now they are brought together because of that very fact that one's negative, the opposites attract. But now they become one. They have one field. And every time they have a child, that field expands more and more. So if this child's here and the wife is here and the husband is here and another child is here, they now have a field that is expanding. You bring in another family over here and they have kids, the field gets expanded even more. And the families come together in the cities, the townships, the villages, the neighborhoods. And every time you gather, your field expands exponentially. So when an idea comes up and a whole group of people start embracing that idea, the energy, the gravity of that field is immense. It starts to bring in everything around it, and we get this coalition of just like minds and energy, everyone with the same purpose. That's what we take to the government, that purpose that comes from the basic, all the basis of the beginning. Just two fields coming together can grow into this huge field, and eventually you have the power to make change locally, in the family, or in the city, or in the state, or in the world. If we can keep that energy together and move forward with it, as it grows. The minute we move outside into that federal government area, it renders the top powerless because we surround it with our energy. It can't function. The opposing king has no space to go to. It's a checkmate. You don't actually take the king. He's just done. He has no space to go. And Mr. Trump, you have a space to go. You've got about 40 felony charges that are now convictions awaiting sentencing, and that's going to come to pass. You might not be alive by the time it happens because of your age. I might not see it because of my age. But you are had just the same. You can't do this kind of energy to a whole civilization, a whole world, and affect it that way without a response. And it is going to be equal but opposite. And you have no defense because the combined energy of everybody will crush you. And that's how you win at chess. You overpower with energy. You don't even have to attack. If they can't move, it's a suicide game for them. Anyway, that's just kind of a beginning of a talk on energy and fields, because it is all about the fields. Everything that's going on in your head is controlling a field that operates out of your heart all the way around you. And the more knowing and understanding you have of that field, the stronger it gets and the wider it becomes. And more things start coming into your field that make it better. It's always supposed to get better. We're not here to feel good. We're here to feel the things we don't understand. So we call them bad. But we get addicted to those very things. It's really, it's a quandary, but I don't know. What would you call it? It's a game. It's a movie. It's a play. It is scripted. We have a script we run by, and the things that are happening around us are not happening to us. It's just that the energy is trying to surround us, to keep us in this matrix, this movie, and to keep playing the same game. It doesn't want us to change the rules of the game, but we're not. We're just exercising the power that comes with each one of those rules, finding its strength, finding its weakness. That's basically what Trump is doing. He's doing what he's supposed to do. We can't really blame him for it. I mean, we can in the physical. He's going to go to jail, or at least the threat is there for him to go to jail for a long period of time, probably the rest of his life. But the thing is, that doesn't do anything. That's a physical response to an energetic problem. We need to stop the energy that he is using by blocking it. And we do that by coming together as one against it, because our combined field will overwhelm anything. That is the power of the people. That is the government we set up 250 years ago that is now being torn apart. The whole world 2 years ago envied us. And less than a month ago or 2 months ago, they pitied us. And the whole reason is sitting in one area, one town, Washington, D.C. And it doesn't matter if you are a Democrat or a Republican. because the only difference in the two is who's giving them the money. So back in the 1980s, or well, I guess it was the 90s, it was when Bush was running, the senior, and Ross Perot ran against him, and that cost him his re-election. But the slogan was not just to get Bush out of office, it was throw the bums out. We were fed up with the Congress then. We're fed up with it now. But now they've learned how to use their energy to convince us that they are the ones that are good and righteous. Neither one of those parties should be representing us, because they don't. They are representing money. So how do we offset that? Getting money out of politics is probably impossible. It's going to be under the table again, but it always has been. It's always been there. But we started out when Washington was the president. He didn't go for a third term. He stopped at 2, and he wanted to set it that way. And there were no political parties during those first 2 terms. The party came up when the source, Washington, stepped down. And then the battle between, well, Jefferson and Adams began. And those two were the division that we now call parties. It's changed, it's morphed, it goes into different forms. But the thing is, it is all energy. And it is all about fields and direction. So we're going into physics to understand politics, and that understanding bleeds over into even spirituality and religion for sure, because religion is the body politic within a belief system. A Republican is a body politic within a belief system. A Democrat is the same. The thing is that the two parties only occupy 30% of each. That leaves 40% out there that isn't. That's the 40% I want. I want us to form that field that is going to be invincible. So the other two parties are out of the government and on the sidewalk as nothing more than, what do you call them? The guys that walk around in the Capitol trying to get you to do things their way. So that gets the freedom of the government to act for the people and not under the bias of the money being given by political parties. That needs to stop. That whole election process, our whole election should be designated to operate to maybe 1 quarter, 3 months out of the year prior to an election. So that would mean you get to campaign in October, September, and August. That's it. And the money for campaigns of anybody running for office cannot come from any one party. All of the donations should go into a fund and be spread out upon all of them equally. The more that are in there for the cut, the smaller the cut. But then everybody has the same budget. Everybody operates in the same time frame. And there are consequences to people who try to break the system. That all comes with that field that surrounds us, if that is the mindset we have. Because the field is not a thing, it is a combination of everything. Fields have feelings that we can feel. The robot up on Mars that's rolling around up there, feeling the ground, testing things, looking at things, analyzing things, Has nothing to do with anything other than getting information back to us. But is it real? I could give you 100 scenarios of how somebody else could be controlling what we see from that very thing. And then the whole idea that maybe it's not there in the first place. It's sitting in the desert somewhere and being photographed by cameras. They said that's what happened the first time we went to the moon. And that's the basis on what Trump works on. It's always what if. It's always, ooh, that's fake. Ooh, this is not. This is, ooh, ah. Point. Get your attention off of him over here. He can't finish a sentence because he has to get you off of that subject. If he doesn't have a good answer, he knows it. So he starts talking about something totally different, and then he gets you to a climax. You think he's going to say something, and all of a sudden he stops and he starts talking about something else. That's by design. He's done that his whole life. That's how he got around his parents even, because, I mean, he was a mama's boy. And he had problems with his dad. And basically everybody, they didn't understand poor Donnie. Neither do we. But then again, like I said, this isn't about that. This is about the energy, the fields that everybody is putting out, and who can get the biggest coalition of field to take power. But that's not what we need. That's not what we want. We don't want a power broker sitting in there and somebody who can blackmail the other side to come along with them. No, we want the field that is of us, that field that we build by getting together as one. That's the party, one. Like the fulcrum on a teeter-totter. You get all the weight on one side, it goes this way. You get the weight on the other side, it goes this way. If you can stand in the middle, you can control the wave. It's like a wing of a plane. That's the field. Have a good day. Thanks for listening.